Multi-step equations look a lot more challenging than just our regular 1- and 2-step equations. The important thing to know is that really there isn't a lot of extra work in solving. There's just some extra work in simplifying. We want to get something simplified and written in the best format for us to be able to then use that to solve. So one of the things that we need to be able to do when we're looking at multi-step equations or just in general is we should be able to distribute. Okay, and we use the distributive property, sorry, that's a really weird parenthesis, when we have a number sitting out in front, and then we have multiple things happening inside the parentheses. Okay, notice there's not a sign in between here, so no sign means multiplication. Parentheses mean multiplication. So what's going to happen is we're going to take this 3, and we're going to pass it out or distribute it to each thing sitting inside the parentheses. Okay, so we're going to take 3 times x. Now keep in mind this is really a 1x, so we're really taking 3 times 1, which is 3, and then we're just bringing that x along. Okay, and then we'll go here. Now, I think the easiest things for my students to do is to not think about this as an operation, but to think about this addition sign as making this number positive. So we really want to take 3 times positive 4, and 3 times positive 4 gives me positive 12. So if you struggle with multiplication, you can do a lot of this in a calculator. Like maybe if you have -5 and you want to multiply that by all of 3x minus 7. Again, we have a number sitting out in front and we have separate pieces we're distributing to. We have multiple pieces we need to multiply by. So if we distribute here, right, in your calculator, you could type in -5 times 3, which would give you a -15. You just need to know that you're going to bring the x along. And again, just like we did above, right, if we think about this sign, this operation here is whether this is negative or positive. This is a -7. So in your calculator, you could take -5 times -7, which will give you a positive 35. Okay, so that's one thing that we need to be able to do. The other thing that we need to be able to do with multi-step equations is that we need to be able to combine like terms. Like terms are things that have the same sort of label, right? So if I said I had 4 grapes, I had 2 apples, and I had 6 grapes, right? It would be simpler for me to say, well, these are both grapes because they have the same label, and that I really have 10 grapes and another 2 apples, right? We can do that same idea when we are talking about combining like terms and equations. So if I have something like 4g plus 2 plus 6g, right? This has a g and this has a g, so those can both be combined. The 2 does not have a g, so it can't be combined with anything that already has a g with it. Okay, so I can do 6 plus 4, which gives me 10g, right? And if you're bad at your math, basic math facts, you could type into your calculator 4 plus 6 and then just put those together and then bring the 2 along. Now, sometimes when we're combining like terms, there's going to be multiple pieces and there's going to be multiple signs to consider. So if I have 6w minus 8 plus 3w minus 4, okay, we need to make sure that we understand, just like everything we've said before, the sign in front of it is what goes with the number. So this is a 6w, which is, right, if I looked in front of it, a positive 6w, a -8, a positive 3w, and a -4, right? These are like terms, and these are like terms. Okay, so if you need to use a calculator to help you, you can always use the addition sign as long as you keep the sign that's with it. So you could say 6 plus positive 3, which would give me a 9w. And we could do -8 plus -4. Okay, or you could use your calculator and just type in 6 plus 3 or negative 8 minus 4. They'll both give you the same correct answer. And we can simplify that to 9w minus 12. So if we use those skills, we should then be able to use that to help us solve multi-step equations. So if we want to solve four times x plus 3 equals 20. Okay, our objective is going to be to simplify everything that's sitting over here on this side of the equal sign before we start solving. So we're going to ignore the other half of the equal sign. We're just looking at the side with the variable. And to start with, we don't even want to think about solving. We just want to simplify. Okay, so we see parentheses, so we want to distribute. So that becomes a 4x plus 12. Okay, we would see if we could combine any like terms, but there's no like terms we can combine. So now we can bring down our equal 20 and solve this just like we did with our other two-step equations. So here's my variable. No large fractions, so I'm going to undo addition and subtraction first. Okay, so I'm adding 12. I want to undo that by subtracting 12. Right, those canceled. I brought down what I had left. And then I can undo multiplication with division, which will give me an x equals 2. Now the biggest issue that my students have with distributing is just their signs. So make sure if there's negatives out here, right, just like we were looking at over here, just make sure you pay really close attention to your signs when you're distributing. Okay, maybe we have something that says (6m plus 4 plus 3 times 2m plus 5 equals 28. So this can look really overwhelming and really hard, and we can often just say, yeah, I definitely can't do that problem. I think, again, it's easier if you sort of ignore that this is even an equation to start with. So ignore what's sitting over there on the other side of the equal sign, and let's just focus on simplifying. Okay, so if we want to simplify, right, we have some parentheses, so we're going to pass this out with multiplication. So we say 3 times 2 is 6m. Now, when I'm distributing this, okay, I need to make sure I'm paying attention to this whole entire piece, right? I'm always looking in front of it. This is a positive 3. So positive 3 times positive 2 is a positive 6m. Okay. A positive 3 times a positive 5 is a positive 15m. And I'm just going to let everything else sort of fall down in place. So I'm going to bring down the 6m, the plus, and the 4. Now when I look at this, I want to see if there's any like terms I can combine. Right, and these both have the same label. They both have m's, so those can go together. But these also can go together. So we have a couple things we can combine. 6m plus 6m, right? 6 plus 6 gives me 12. And a positive 4 plus a 15 will give me a 19. Right, I got everything simplified. I'm down to this nice, simple two-step piece. And now I can worry about the fact that this has an equal sign. Okay, and just like we were doing, we'll undo our addition and subtraction first. So we'll get 12m equals 9. We will undo our multiplication with division. Again, you could type this into your calculator. The key is just no approximating. This will reduce to 3/4. You could get an answer of 0.75 as well. Then there's one more piece that I think should be considered when we are looking at multi-step equations, and that's the idea that we could have some more things with fractions happen. And my students really don't like fractions. Okay, so they'll often get a problem like 2x over 3 plus 1/6 equals 4. And yes, you could go through and you could subtract 1/6, okay, and deal with this 2/3. I think it's just important that you don't let the fractions overwhelm you and you think about the fact that you have a calculator that you can use to help you. This really, truly isn't any more advanced than the two-step equations. It's just multi-step because this could take us 2 steps to solve. Okay, so we can undo addition with subtraction, right? We're still focusing over here on this side of the equal sign. So again, don't let that fraction freak you out. Just pick up your calculator and take 4 minus 1 ABC6. So that tells us 2x over 3 equals 3 and 5, 6. Now, this you can then think about as one piece, and you can divide by the 2/3 all at once, or you could choose to move these in separate pieces, so you could multiply by 3. I'm going to run out of space, but that's okay. So I'm going to multiply that answer I had by 3. So that says 2x equals 11 and 1/2. Okay, and then I'm going to divide by 2. Again, I'm letting my calculator do the fraction piece for me. And I get a final answer of x equals 5 and 3/4. Right, so really don't let fractions get to you. You can still deal with fractions just fine. You have your calculator to help you. So you're going to work on a worksheet, and I just want to show you really quickly when you work on this. Don't worry about any of this part over here that says check. We're not worried about that right now. All I want you to do is solve these problems, get an answer, and then watch the short video to make sure you're doing them correctly.